Squatters can cause a real problem, especially when they move in and you have no idea. So, one thing that we have done over time is kind of perfect our squatter process. And so, in the 10 years that we've been managing investment properties, every once in a while, it's pretty rare, but every once in a while, you'll have somebody break into a unit, right? It could be mostly this is going to be related to a vacant property. So, vacant property could be up for rent, could be just be during the turnover process, whatever it is, squatters move in somehow. People also have to pay attention to different scammers out there. So if you have a vacant unit that's for rent and people are doing self showings, there's a lot of good technology for residents to look at a potential property without somebody being accompanied and showing them the unit. That's also another thing that you have to look out for is just scams online. But when it comes to squatters, we had a situation recently where it's three parcels on one property. We only managed two of the parcels or two of the buildings. The third building is almost beyond disrepair and the owner has never done anything with it. It's been vacant for many years, and so we just noticed through our normal safety checks that we do on vacant properties, even if it's for rent. Obviously, going by, you're going to show the property, but aside from that, doing additional checks just to make sure if a realtor showed it, the keys are still there, the windows are still locked, that sort of thing. So this particular property we were showing one of the units that was vacant and realized that some squatters had moved into the small house that's on the property. And pretty simple process. One of our team members, we have a good amount of handymen on the team, and so we called one of the vendors, said, "Hey, we have reports from one of the residents based on their camera that we think somebody could be." Living in this unit or just doing something that they shouldn't be. So dispatched one of our vendors has been familiar with doing evictions and lock changes and meeting the sheriff and stuff before. So goes out to the property, can kind of tell that there's multiple individuals. You have to always think about safety here first, right? So you don't know what these people are up to, how they're going to handle anything. So obviously we didn't want him to go into the property if there's active individuals in there. But simple thing is call the non-emergency police line, have the police show up, do a report, get everybody out. Once they're out, there's notices that the sheriff's office can leave on the property where in the future, they don't have to even call you. If they find somebody there, they can trespass them and get them off the property. So basically what we did. And in just a few hours, handyman shows up, gets the police involved, gets people removed from the property. He secures the windows, boards up if needed. Typically, if the windows aren't cracked and stuff, we'll just try to lock those down and maybe just board up over the actual front door and back door. Can be relatively painful process or not painful process or quick, I should say, if done correctly. And that's kind of the best case scenario. Hey, worst case, owner was out a few $100s between time and just boarding up a few things. But great improvement. It was starting to cause issues with the resident feeling unsafe that was in the house, 100 yards away. And they have kids and stuff. Obviously, anybody doesn't want, somebody just squatting around. So if you don't address that stuff quickly, it can impact your current residents. But yeah, we're doing everything right. That's how we caught it. But there could be other scenarios where, basically the second sort of scenario I wanted to talk about was people moving in and paying by credit cards and stuff like that. So you can have situations where what we do, if a resident applies, goes through the full screening process, we're going to approve them to move in, even though they're not necessarily squatting on the front end. There may be ulterior motives. We typically see this in lower income sort of neighborhoods, is where this might be a little bit more common or attempts at this. So resident got approved, gets moved into the unit. If a resident's going to move in a really quick timeline, you need to make sure that their credit card payment, debit payment could even be ACH, that it clears. Because what you don't want, and what we require is if somebody's going to move in within a week or so, we require them to do money orders or cashier's checks only for that first payment before they get access and move in. Because what you can have happen is somebody pays by, let's say, credit card as an example, which is super common at any point during any management company. Usually takes some sort of online payments. Like I said, even ACH could take a few days to bounce if they paid that way. And so if it's too close to lease start date, we recommend getting certified funds. And because what they could happen is they basically pay, let's say they're 4 days out and they're doing a fast move in and they're trying to rush your team. They could pay online with card or just whatever, get access, move in, and then the deposit and all the move in charges bounce. And then you basically would, give them a 3-day notice, like you're evicting them essentially. But they could have gotten access to the property and they could really cause an issue, or you might be able to get them out quickly in that scenario. But the best way to prevent that sort of, accidental for you as the owner or investor scammer it's kind of a squat turns into basically a squatter situation or holdover tenant where they're staying past their sort of agreed terms. And so that's something that you always want to keep an eye out for is just doing certified funds on the front end move-ins, and that's what we do. But that's something that we've also just run into other issues, or we'll get phone calls from potential owners that are looking to hire us where they're going through a certain situation, and that's stuff that pops up. Or another scenario would be that you lease it to a unit, they stop paying, and then they move out and sublease and they're collecting rent from the tenant, but they're not paying you. So they're basically scammed the person that they just moved in. So that could also be something that falls into a squatter situation, which we have seen. We had one of those in the last 18 months where a resident started to fall behind. We were moving forward with the eviction. In the meantime, they moved out, let somebody else move in, scam them out of their deposit. And then, they might have even signed a lease with this other person and it could get pretty hairy. So the best way to prevent that is quick evictions if you need to. And with vacancies, checking on them routinely and making sure that nothing's happening in the meantime between showings or, anything that's getting left and doors and stuff like that. So keep an eye on your properties. We've had pretty good success, usually just calling the non-emergency line. Most of the time, they're not able to really move in any major furniture or produce like a fake lease. So we've been maybe just fortunate, but most of ours, when we find it, we're usually getting them out the same day. Hopefully it's easy for you guys as well. But the quicker that you can react, the better. That way they can't sort of set up shop and you might have a more difficult time where a sheriff could say that you have to go through a civil process. So easiest way, keep an eye on your properties is going to be the fastest way to make sure that squatters don't happen. But if you have properties where you're doing new development or something, you got to be checking on them consistently, installing cameras and having the property security features as well, which you could do during a vacancy anyways as well, but we don't see it as super often. So it kind of depends on the context of what you're dealing with. But keep an eye on them. Squatters usually pretty easy to get out if you have the right process in place, and sort of how to handle those situations. But they could get more involved where you just get stuck with having to file an eviction. And our attorney's pretty good at understanding different situations. So even if you don't know the name of the people that are actually there, there's ways to sort of get them out. But usually, an emergency police line works really well to help them get removed in a timely manner before they have a chance to set up and it becomes a more complicated situation. Thanks for watching.